Ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of every person, at the heart of you, is this burning question. And that question is, who am I? Every human being faces this. Every human being is driven to answer this call because we just kind of showed up one day, right? We were just kind of born. Broadcasting worldwide from the Command Center of Emotional Intelligence. I am the General, and this is the WIDP podcast. I am delighted that you are here to experience the global debut of WIDP on the airwaves. This is a brand new concept and a brand new word likely for you. WIDP, this acronym, I'm going to talk to you all about it. And I'm going to also bring another word that we're going to use a lot that you may have never heard before. It's likely that you haven't. And that word is temperament. We're going to talk about temperament. We're going to talk about WIDP because there's a movement happening. And the point of this podcast, the point of this whole broadcast to address this movement is to bring awareness of this concept of temperament. Ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of every person, at the heart of you, is this burning question. And that question is, who am I? Every human being faces this. Every human being is driven to answer this call because we just kind of showed up one day, right? We were just kind of born and there we were. And when we came to realize ourselves and kind of become self-aware, we've been trying to answer this question. We became conscious of ourselves and we want to know what's going on. What is this world about? Who am I? And how do I fit in this world? There are grown adults that have not answered this question. Kids feel this question, even if they haven't put it to words yet. They feel this and they get a lot of indicators from their parents, from their upbringing, from their environment. They get a lot of influences. And they're working this question out for themselves and they're getting a lot of poor input. As grown adults, you may have experienced that same thing. The world is coming up short when it comes to answering this question, because whose job is it to define who you are? Who gets to talk about you? Who knows you well enough except yourself? And yet, we're moving around in this space, in this world, trying to figure things out and answer this question, who am I? And we're having a hard time for ourselves of not just understanding who we are, but knowing what to stand on when the time comes to advocate for ourselves. So answering this question is critical to every other thing that you do in life. I would argue that this broadcast is the most important broadcast that you will ever hear. Choosing to put this broadcast on the airwaves was my ministry to the world, my love for the world, because I love people. And I believe that the world needs better than all of the best tools and all of the best resources that are currently out there. They're just not hitting the mark. And I'm going to prove that to you in this broadcast with very specific examples. And you're not just going to hear this, you're going to feel this. And I'm really, really excited to bring this to you today. So what in the world is WIDP? And what in the world is this thing called temperament? in a very, very short form, it answers the question, who am I? So you as an individual, a unique and sovereign individual, asking this question within yourself, moving into the world with this question burning inside you, who am I? And it's critical because there's an urgency that you feel to get this question answered. We have a lot of distractions. We have a lot of environmental impacts. This burning criticality of this question being answered affects everything. This broadcast is going to answer that question. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to help with. And I'm going to lead you through that. That's why I'm referred to as the general. I'm going to lead you through that. That's what I do. That's my leadership. Leading people through this gauntlet of the mind, this invisible space of emotions. And WIDP and the approach and lens of temperament. Again, you may have never heard of this before. Likely you haven't. And that's why this is so important. Because this is the beginning of that awareness. This movement in people to answer this question for themselves needs assistance. And it needs the right assistance for the right reasons. I'm excited to prove that to you. WIDP. WIDP stands for Worley's Identity Discovery Profile. Now, WIDP, to dip into the psychological world a little bit, for those who that may not be your expertise, WIDP is a temperament assessment. Any psychometric assessment, in order to be a true psychometric assessment that can be used in the field of psychology, which is simply the study of human behavior, has to be validated as a credible tool. There are parameters and there are ways that the world of psychometrics prove a tool to be reliable and valid. The easy way to explain it is a tool is valid in that it accurately measures what it intends to measure. Now, it's challenging. As a human being, you and I know this, it's challenging in this invisible space because it seems like everything's up for grabs for translation and interpretation, especially when it comes to emotions. If you ask a person, let's talk about love, that becomes an ambiguous space in just 4 letters. It's difficult to nail these things down. It's very challenging. So in science, there's a reason that mental and emotional topics can never become a law. They can only be theory because you cannot prove those invisible elements of humanity, like emotions. Since you cannot prove them in scientific law, then we can refer to this as the temperament theory or the theory of temperament. That's just a rule of the trade. That's a rule of psychology and science. So this will always be theory. Einstein's theory of relativity, brilliant man in history, still theory. So it isn't saying that only the smart people make their stuff into laws, that there are certain principles and rules at play, and this one abides by that. The invisible world of emotions is hard to nail down, and that challenging world is how challenging it's going to be for me to bring these to you in a tangible way. WIDP does that. That's why I use it. Now, this is not a sales platform for WIDP. That's why I said WIDP and this word temperament. This whole broadcast is going to actually be teaching you and bringing to your awareness the language and lens of temperament. I want to define temperament for you now so that we have a context to work with. Temperament is the true you. Again, we're in that emotional space. We're in that very ambiguous space, but we're going to do more than understand this. You're going to feel it. And temperament, as I talk about temperament, as I nail down these comparisons and as I prove these things to you, you're going to start feeling these things inside of you, and it's going to happen pretty instantaneously. So this is going to be a self-proving concept. Like I said, we need better than the world has to offer. And there are a lot of fortune cookie things out there that try to help locate answers to these questions like, who am I? They try their best, but they're only as valid as what they intend to measure. And there aren't tools out there that measure the depths of a person like WIDP. Worley's identity discovery profile, this temperament assessment that I'm introducing to you now, was created by a man named Dr. John Wayne Worley. I know Dr. John personally. I have for many years. My father knew him personally before even I did. I know his family, most of them. I've spent time with him in many, many, many conversations. And he is a genius by every stretch of the word. This man, absolute genius. He created WIDP because he had a problem in 35 years of clinical practice as a psychologist. His clinical practice had people come and go in his doors, and it was his job to solve their problems, his job to bring them answers, bring them insight. And he noticed a recurring theme with his clientele. Now, Dr. John was certified. He was certified in tools you may have heard of before, like Myers-Briggs. That's a personality assessment. The DISC, D-I-S-C. The DISC is actually more commonly used in workplaces. It's also a personality assessment. And personality assessments, they do this. They are reliable to measure personality. And personality is just the mask we put on in certain environments. It's the useful face that we lend to interactions in order for us to navigate that space, communicate with people, to go to work, to go to, say, our churches, religious institutions, even to go to Walmart. We put on a mask for the environment that we're going to enter into, and that mask may change. If my kids enter the room, that mask changes. If my parents enter the room, that mask changes again. A significant other enters into the room, there the mask changes again. If I stub my toe, that mask changes again, whether I wanted it to or not. So personality is just the mask that we wear, and Myers-Briggs and DISC measure personality, and they measure it accurately. They measure the masks for different environments. That's why there are multiple DISCs, because there are multiple environments a person may commonly find themselves in, and you would have to retake the DISC again in order to find out what personality am I in this new environment. And so then there would be a new results. And well, you may be likely to behave or interact in this way, this, that, because you changed environments and you find something else useful. And Dr. John was certified in all these tools. They were the best the world had to offer. And he used them to assess his clients in his clinical practice. But the common theme that he had was whenever he brought those awarenesses to them to address in their environment, to help solve their problems, he'd see them again a couple weeks later. They'd come back in with the same problem to fix it again. And he realized the tools that I'm using to find out who this person is not going deep enough to address the root cause. This was a short-term fix using tools that address short-term personalities because they change environments. And all of a sudden, we change the useful mask we put on. And he realized he can't use these short-term awarenesses to solve long-term problems. Now, if he's certified in the best that there was to offer, he needed something better. And in 35 years, he knew there isn't any better because he stayed on the state-of-the-art findings of the industry. It isn't out there. So he created WIDP. And WIDP measures temperament. Temperament is who you are. He needed a tool that accurately got underneath the mask to the true individual. This broadcast talking about temperament means we're going to get down to the root of who you are. And we're going to talk about the root of people so accurately that it's going to hit you in places that you have felt all your life. So you're going to know it's valid. You're going to know it works. And you're going to begin to accurately identify the true you. I want to talk about my story a little bit on this broadcast in this first episode, because I think it's important to nail down why on earth. We know why Dr. John did it, but what about me? Why am I hosting the WIDP podcast as the general to lead people into this awareness? What happened in my life that would bring me to this point? I want to share that with you in this first episode. Whether you're listening to an episode down the road and you came back to this first one to find out more, I want to plant those roots for you. Before I get too far, though, I got to give a shout out to our sponsor. This broadcast has been years in development because this space has been needed for so long. A space where people can start to hear things that are effective for their self to actually get down to the root of who they are and answer this question that they have burning inside of them every day. We don't do anything without this answer. And if we try to move into the world without answering, who am I? We're likely to be formed by the world's opinions. And it's not going to feel right. It's going to be a lot of friction, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. It's going to drain us and sap us of our energy. It could be happening in you now. So answering this question is the most important. And our sponsor chose to reach out to me and say, I want to sponsor your first 6 episodes. That's 1 episode a month. And she said, I want to do this for you because I'm starting a program called a Podcast Accelerator, and I want to start with you. And me and 2 other people who are having their own voice as well in their own areas of helpfulness for people. This was mine. And that lady's name is Connie Davis, dear friend of mine. Connie started Maiden Explorations, and Maiden Explorations' mission is unlocking commerce. I love this concept. Unlocking commerce. If you look at the things that you do as an individual and you move into the world, commerce isn't really just about money transactions. When commerce is happening, it's a trade. Every day you trade energy, you trade time. Yes, you trade currency, money. Connie has a passion after 25 years in the financial industry. Connie has a passion for helping people understand that commerce is everywhere. And she knows the importance of unlocking what commerce is for individuals, for people, for our worlds as we move through our worlds, to know what to do with our energy, where it makes sense in a healthy way, to transact with certain interactions, with certain people, with certain efforts like this one. And Maiden Explorations was set up to help do that. You'll find that on ConnieDavisSpeaks.com. There are links in the description of this podcast to get you there. Go look at the website. Go see what Connie Davis is doing. She's so balanced and such a kind and gentle individual. You may taste the Kool-Aid and love the flavor. I'm pretty direct. I love to speak out. I have a very upfront voice, which is why this podcast works for me. She tends to be behind the scenes. You wouldn't know that because she's now got a website and now she's out and she does great at networking. Is just a miracle worker when it comes to movement with people. But you may find that you're feeling like what she's doing might be for you. So go check it out. And a special thank you to Connie for sponsoring this broadcast and allowing this movement to hit the airwaves and bring some clarity for people. So a little bit about my story. I've had 3 paradigm shifts in my life. 3 key moments that I can remember in the context of temperament. They were life-changing, life-altering, because they all gave me a clarity that I needed to secure myself and who I am. I only am going to share 2 of them with you. And the reason is because the third one is so personal for me. It means so much to me that I only share that with very, very, very close people with me when the time is right. And I share what happened in my life because it means so much. But I'll share the other 2 with you on this broadcast. And the first one was when I was 12 years old. And my father, I love my father dearly. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he did amazing work. He was a missionary for a long time, but he was a minister all of his life. I mean, from the time that he was about 17, he was a minister. And some of his ministry also involved counseling. He faced the same problem that Dr. John did. All of the people of the congregations that he spoke in throughout his many years, and of course, people that just knew him and saw him as an authority and figure in the Christian circles and just as a minister, had heavy influence and a very strong character. They went to him with their problems with the same thing. Please help me with my problems, solve my problems. And he wanted to do that, but he also had a difficult time because he didn't know how to help them the best they could. He could point them to certain things, but he knew too that there just wasn't a lot of long-term solutions. He was up at a conference, a preacher's conference. And as it turns out, Dr. John Wayne Worley is also a minister. And Dr. John Wayne Worley was at a conference in Oklahoma that my father was attending, and he set up a booth for WIDP. This was over 30 years ago. Set up a booth for WIDP. My father went up to his booth. They became instant friends because it turns out they were the same temperament. So they speak the same languages and they understand each other and their needs really well. So they became friends for years. And my father saw the power of what WIDP could do because it was anchored in the right things for people. And at 12 years old, my father got certified in WIDP a couple years after that seminar. And when he got certified, he came home and he gave me the WIDP assessment. I was 12 years old, filled it out. Dad ran the results, and instantly, my father was able to answer questions he had about me, about his parenting skills, about why the relationship he and I had was the way that it was. Instantly, he knew. And he saw something very particular. He saw that we were both leaders. Even at 12 years old, he's like, this is a natural born leader. That's why we butt heads. That's why I can't seem to make any progress in certain areas. He realized I was exactly like he was. And it changed our relationship. The rest of my life, I felt this, especially through the later part then of my childhood. My dad changed his parenting style because he saw and understood my needs. And he changed his parenting style to match my needs for my sake. That was one paradigm shift of my life. Now, I wasn't responsible for that one. All I did was be honest whenever I was answering the questions so that my father could know me and see me. I didn't know it at the time, and that had a particularly impactful presence in my life that I appreciated later. I didn't know that at the time. Not long after high school, about a year and a half after high school, I joined the military. And I had a little bit of knowledge of my temperament at that time, enough to be able to have a conversation with my father about it from time to time and at least know that I was a natural born leader. So going in the military, you're going to have some problems. You're not able to lead right away when you go into the military. You got to work your way up through the structure, through the rank and file, and earn your way. I had a conversation with myself on the bus from Houston, Texas to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training. And that conversation with myself did change my life because I realized I needed to address myself with love, caring, compassion, and understanding. And I knew I was about to move into an environment and space that I was completely unfamiliar with, and actually that was not going to meet my needs because my needs as a leader was about to be challenged. I was going to enter a space where I've got to earn my way for years, and I won't get leadership experience. And sure enough, for the first 4 years, I had to work my way up through the ranks. I had to follow. I had to take orders. But on the bus ride up to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training, I told myself, I'm going to allow the military to change what it needs to, whether it be the discipline, whether it be perspective, whether it be how to follow. But they can't have one thing. They cannot change who I am. And I knew myself well enough to know the difference. That was enough. At that time, that was plenty. And that was a big conversation for me. And moving into the military with that awareness that they can have me, but they can't change the root of who I am. There are grown adults today, and you may be one of them, that don't know how to have that conversation with themselves because they've never advocated for the parts of themselves that are most important to them. I knew a little about temperament at that time, but I knew enough to have that conversation in a pivotal moment. I spent the next 10 years in the military. It affected me at least the next 10 years. When I got out of the military, I took a first look at my heart side, which temperament addresses. It addressed my leadership side, and I know who I was when I move out into society and interact with society, like at work or at Walmart, or just regular interactions through the day. But my heart side is one that I hadn't gotten a chance to look at yet, because in the military, you kind of put that to the side. And when I looked at my heart side and I read the words and soaked them in for me, what was the first time to really soak them in, I recognized my heart immediately. And one of the reasons that I am doing this today and have been in the world of temperament and WIDP now for several decades is because I felt the power of words talking directly to me, and I felt them immediately. I breathed a sigh of relief with the freedom of knowing I was reading who I am, my true self, my heart. And I read the needs that I had, and I went, yep, that's exactly what I need. In the lens of temperament, it addresses the needs that you have at the deepest level. Whereas there are a lot of tools out there that will address who you are and your behaviors, but they don't tell you who you truly are. And that's why there's a confusion. It's like a fortune cookie that we try to fit ourselves to, and it reads almost so generically that you could make it work. But it doesn't give you that deep breath. It doesn't give you that freedom that you recognize and it resonates with you immediately. Temperament does. That's why it's a reliable approach and lens. Now, when I say lens, that's a word that I choose very carefully, because in this movement of answering, who am I? The lens that we see the world and the filter that we see the world is important. I told you I was going to prove this to you, so I'm going to do a little exercise here. And I told you the words that I read from my heart were really important. I'm going to pick some words, and I want you to feel these words when I say them. The first word is perfectionist. That one probably resonates with a lot of you. However, there's this hint in that word that there's a brokenness or a deficit. I love that word, deficit. It's a deficit lens. Something's missing. It doesn't quite explain me. It doesn't quite nail me down. Oh, I may have some traits here or there as a perfectionist. And yes, I've seen myself have perfectionistic tendencies that played out here and there. But perfectionist somehow doesn't quite describe, who I am. I'm going to pick another one. This one doesn't punch as hard as that one. Antisocial. This could have been an accusation for some. Antisocial. Now that hints at you should be a certain way and you're not. Again, a brokenness. Something's off about you. Here's one that's going to ruffle some feathers. Avoidant. We've heard this in context with a few other words like anxious avoidant, for example. And you think maybe, well, again, kind of that fortune cookie thing, I can kind of make it work if I wanted to. Yeah, I can see where I might this or that. I might be avoidant here or there. I've been told that I avoid. I notice I walk out of the room and certain. How about one you see on social media? Here's another one. I'm an undiagnosed something. Fill in the blank. Whatever came to your mind. I'm just walking around an undiagnosed this or that. All of these words have a deficit implied. And even if you say, yeah, I really see how some of that can be me, at the end of that sentence is, and I need to fix that. So if you look out into the world and social media right now, the best the world has to offer with the top influencers out there, they're talking about these concepts through a deficit lens, that there's a brokenness that needs to be fixed. And everyone then who is hearing it, maybe you are included in that, walks around thinking I'm broken and I need to be fixed. I heard a powerful one on social media the other day, and it said, I don't think life is intended to be lived. How did it say? There's a powerful phrase out there right now that I saw just the other day, and it said, I don't think the second half of my life is meant to be lived by fixing the first half. And a lot of people feel that way. I'm trying to recover from the first half of my life by healing in the second half of my life. And so the healing part is great, but the brokenness of the first half, is that how we're meant to live? Is that the peak of existence? To go through and experience everything and then try to learn life lessons in the second half? This broadcast is here to say no. Authoritatively, no. No, that's not what's going on. I think you just got bad information. And you got bad information from people who mean well, and influencers who mean well, and even psychological facts that mean well. But they can't speak to the most important part. They can't speak to who you are. They're not equipped. They don't have the awareness. That's why we're bringing this broadcast. That's why I'm here. I'm so glad that you found this broadcast. Now I'm going to give you some words that I hope resonate with you. And I'm going to start changing the lens in this approach of temperament to simply show you. Again, it's really hard to work in this invisible space. So we got to make it tangible somehow and bring the feelings out, or create feelings that hit differently. Those 4 words created a feeling. let me bring some new words to you. You might be someone, not everybody's like this, but you might be someone where the word loyalty hits you deeply. And I'm going to go one more. The word loyalty that's proven through consistency. If you are a person, and again, you may have never put words to this, so I'm going to do it carefully, but just navigate the space. You may not be, so hold on. I'm going to bring some more words. But if you are, loyalty is a big one. And consistency, you might have gone, yes. If you are that person where loyalty and consistency matter deeply to you, there's a reason. If you're not, that's fine. Nothing's broken. You don't have to fix anything. But if you are, there's a reason. And it's because there are needs that you have that center around consistency. That for you to trust people with the most important parts of yourself, the deepest parts of yourself, the consistency has to be there. Because that is going to indicate the loyalty that feeds your needs. I'm going to give you another one. Balance. Especially energy. Balance and energy means everything in moderation. And balance being the most important word to you means you already have a gift of perspective that sees what's out of balance. Not everybody has that gift. I actually don't have that gift. I wish I did. It's such a cool thing. I don't have that gift. But you, if balance means something very deeply to you and really, really resonates with you, it means there's something right in you. There are needs there that are valid and legitimate. And balance is the answer. To create that predictability in your life, to work hard to create that predictability so that you can have the balanced energy that you need every single day. That may mean something to you. And that's another word that's very important. And it doesn't bring a deficit with it. It hits different. Here's another one. This is the last one. This is a good one. Y'all are going to like this one. I picked this one on purpose because it makes me laugh. Competence. Competence. Yes, competence. Competence is so important. Competence, because we're not offending other people by saying they're incompetent, but we will acknowledge there are some incompetent people and incompetence that reeks in the world, and it drives you crazy. Because you are a person, not a perfectionist. You're a person who values competence. Now, interestingly enough, you value competence first in yourself. Competence is a must, and it makes you very uneasy when you're in a space where you are not competent. So competency is key. Competence is key. These words are just an example of something that resonates deeper than what the world is currently offering. And there's a reason. Answering the question, who am I? To get that right through the right lens is the difference between a healthy and functional you and an unhealthy and a dysfunctional you. Words like loyalty, consistency, balance, energy, competence, these all point to needs that you have at an emotional level that you may have never identified before, but you already knew they were there. You feel them in all sorts of instances, and you may have hopefully felt them now. Temperament is not a deficit lens like you're going to see currently in the world and on social media and even through people. They're trying to help. They're trying to make things better. And you can tell this is what they're doing for themselves, but it doesn't fit deep. It only fixes things short term. Temperament is a long term. because you have had these needs since the day you were born, and they're valid and they're legitimate. The lens of temperament is a needs-based lens, and these are emotional needs, something that you may have never known about, not just weren't aware, like gravity. Sir Isaac Newton felt gravity every single day, but not until that apple fell on his head did he go, there's something here, and I just became aware of it. Today, that's what temperament may do for you. That's what the WIDP podcast is going to be doing in the broadcast that we make each month. We're going to bring this awareness of temperament to your doorstep. It's impactful. It matters most. And I'm going to advocate for you on this broadcast as you learn to advocate for yourself and answer this question: who am I? Temperament is the true you. 30 minutes goes by really fast, doesn't it? There's so much to say. But at the very beginning, I wanted to first identify what is WIDP. Worley's Identity Discovery Profile. And the WIDP podcast is about temperament. Each broadcast, we're going to be talking about temperament. We're going to resonate in the deepest parts of you. This broadcast is not for the unintelligent. And this podcast is not for the emotionally unavailable. If you are still listening to this podcast, you want to be emotionally honest with yourself. You want to be emotionally intelligent. You want to improve your life in the ways that you don't understand, to find those self-development resources that matter the most. And you may have felt an impact. Even in the first broadcast, you may have felt an impact today. I hope you did. Remember that who you are is what matters most. And that's not your character. Your character matters, but who you are first is based on the emotional needs that you have, because it's how you navigate the world, and it's the lens through which you see the world. So this movement of answering the question, who am I, begins by taking off the deficit lens the world is painting. Look again at yourself and realize there is more there than brokenness that needs healing. There are legitimate and valid needs that you have. And these things are right. The things that are strengths in you. And the temperament lens unlocks those strengths for you to be able to be who you are, to speak up for the needs that matter most to you, and to be your true self in the most healthy and functional way, starting with you. You know, Mother Teresa said, if you want to love the world, go home and love your family. Well, of course, that starts with you. So I'm challenging you today to begin feeling inside of yourself, to love yourself enough to have the courage to see your true self, love who you are, so that you can take that into the most important places in your life that you do commerce, the places where you work, the places where you love, the children that you love, the significant others that you are with. You are changing history for yourself and for your family. Take off the deficit lens and put on the lens of temperament. Everything will become crystal clear, and I cannot wait to talk about this more in the next broadcast. I am the General, and this is the WIDP broadcast.